All these are essentially going to the rural areas in a big way. And therefore, it is not just through PM Awas Yojana and Sadak Yojana, but major investments in strengthening the corridors, building nodes, and therefore also in improving the rural infrastructure is happening.
11.
Ma'am, I'm Maria Shakir from NDTV and NDTV Profit. Congratulations for creating history today by becoming the only finance minister for having presented 7 consecutive budgets. Ma'am, my question to you is about the first-timer scheme, because as you said, that employment perhaps sums up the essence of this budget. Would there be more blueprint coming out as to how this first-timers scheme will be playing out, and what will be the role of private sector?
Just 1 minute. See, this Prime Minister's package that I announced has 5 different schemes. The first timers is, I would think, one of the very, very innovative initiative. So what we are doing there is to be able to provide first timers 1 whole month's salary as subsidy. And this will be put into their account as direct benefit transfer, but possibly in tranches. When an employer picks up a first timer, and this is through the EPFO that you get to know that they have paid their provident fund amounts, and therefore the first timer indicator that we are talking about will be established. So they can't just say one of the existing employee is a first timer and claim it. There are enough checks and balances in the system to make sure that indeed the first timer is coming in. And then the first timers will be put through that learning curve, and this will help them to acquire skills so that they become fully productive. This kind of a subsidy giving, 1, you give the first one month's salary. 2, you're also giving both for the employee and for the employer subsidy. So the applicable person for whom it is being given may even draw a wage up to 1 lakh rupees. But to the extent of 15,000 is what you're giving as a subsidy. The installments, as I said, for the first 1 month wage that you want to give will be done over 3 installments, direct into the first time employee's account. One compulsory measure that we are bringing in there is to make sure that the employee undergoes online financial literacy course before claiming the second installment from the government. So he may be a qualified engineer, he may be a diploma holder, he's a first-time employee in an office, he becomes a first-time employee and the employer also claims that he's been recruited. We try giving him the 15,000 rupees. He may have a salary of 1 lakh, but up to 15,000 rupees is what we are going to give. And in that, if you're giving 3 installments, the first installment will be given. But before he draws the second installment, he should undergo an online financial literacy course so that he can claim the second one. So we are not training him in engineering, we are training him in financial literacy. Post that, of course, the place where he goes to work, he's going to be working in any case. Then subsidy to be refunded if in case the employer removes him from the work within 12 months. So the employer gets a subsidy as well, but he will have to refund it if within 12 months this first-time employer has been removed out of the work. This will cover, and we expect it to cover, 1 crore persons per annum. And the scheme will run for 2 years. So up to 24 months, you can have new employees brought in, new first-time employees brought in, for whom the government will give 15,000 rupees as from our side, 1 month, what we think, 1 month's salary, although his salary may be any amount, but to a cap of 1 lakh. And then he undergoes some financial literacy course, post which the second installment and the third installments can be withdrawn, put into his account. But most important is, if the employer removes him within 12 months, the employer will have to refund the subsidy given to the employer. So that's how that scheme works.
278.
If I may just add, details are available in the budget speech in the annexure on page 31. So there are details of all the five schemes in this package. If you go through them, there's considerable amount of detail which you can get.
Hi, good evening. This is Priyashmita from Informist. I have 2 points from the budget that I would like to ask. The first is nominal GDP has been pegged at 10.5%. And we have seen that growth is on a high momentum, and even the RBI has pegged growth at 7.2%. And the Econ survey said that it is going to be between 6.5 to 7%. So a 10.5% nominal GDP looks a little conservative. What is your view on it? And the second is that there's a mention that beyond FY26, you would want to reduce your debt to GDP. And you've mentioned that, the 4% debt to GDP it's a thing of the past. So what do you think is a sustainable debt to GDP or a desirable debt to GDP at this point? Thank you.
What was the first question again?
Conservative nominal GDP projection.
See, 10.5% could be a combination of 7% growth and 3.5% GDP deflator. So a combination of wholesale price plus consumer price could easily be 3.5%. That's a very likely scenario. So 7 plus 3.5, yes, it is slightly conservative, but I don't think it is way off what is likely. Or it could be 6.5% growth and 4% inflation as per the deflator. So I think the number is reasonable, slightly conservative, yes, but we would prefer to achieve the numbers. Second, on the path after 26-27, which has been outlined in the Finance Minister's speech at the end of the Part A. So the commitment, as she has mentioned, is to endeavor to reduce the debt to GDP every year. That is in future the fiscal consolidation path. What is the percentage that would result in that fiscal consolidation is not something that we are disclosing here today or can disclose today. It will depend on circumstances. But there is a commitment to lower the debt to GDP ratio. So if every year it has to be reduced, there will necessarily have to be a particular level of deficit which we cannot exceed. And that will depend on prevailing growth rates, interest rates, and the other parameters which go into the calculation of the debt dynamics. But I can tell you that it is most likely to be a figure not above 4.5%.
249.
मैं सुनील सौरभ बोल रहा हूँ। मैं पहले तो आपको काफी बधाई दे दूंगी, बहुत अच्छा बजट आपने पेश की है। दूसरा मुझे ये जानना है कि रेलवे के लिए क्या कुछ खास रहा बजट में?
Which organization you are from?
कौन सा पत्रिका से?
पेपर में हूँ, लोक भारती पेपर है।
Sorry?
लोक भारती।
लोक भारती।
तो पहले तो बधाई दे दिया हूँ मैं आपका, बहुत अच्छा बजट आपने पेश की है और रिकॉर्ड भी की है। 7 साल से लगातार आप वित्त मंत्री के रूप में काम। मेरा कहना है कि रेलवे के लिए क्या कुछ खास हुआ, क्योंकि कोई जानकारी हम लोग को अभी तक नहीं मिली कि रेलवे के लिए क्या गया है। दूसरा, मैं रेलवे में सीनियर सिटीजन्स को कंसेशन मिलता था, आप यहाँ पीआईबी में है, पीआईबी जर्नलिस्ट को भी कंसेशन मिलता था। कोरोना में वो बंद हो गया, कोरोना को खत्म हुए भी 2-3 साल हो गए हैं, तो फिर से ये बहाल नहीं हुआ। क्या इसकी उम्मीदें हम लोग कर सकते हैं कि आगे बहाल होगी या नहीं?
रेलवे का जो एक्सपेंडिचर बजट है नेक्स्ट ईयर, इट्स 255,393 crores, which is the highest ever, and it's a very substantial increase in recent years. So that is a very large amount of investment in the railway. So I think there is a very adequate provision.
जर्नलिस्ट के लिए
ठीक है, सुना।
277 प्लीज।
इसमें सीनियर सिटीजन और पीआईबी जर्नलिस्ट को भी जो स्लैब में रिवीजन हुआ है उसमें फायदा है। सीनियर सिटीजन्स को फैमिली पेंशन में स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन का फायदा हुआ है रेलवे में। अच्छा, ठीक।
Hello, ma'am. This side. Harsh Kumar, this side from Business
वो बजट
Standard.
का फायदा जो दिया है सर वो भी तो मिलेगा सीनियर सिटीजन्स को और सबको, रेलवे में भी मिलेगा.
Hello, ma'am. Harsh Kumar, this side from Business Standard newspaper. So, ma'am, during your speech, you mentioned about the FDI liberalization. Can you give a bit detail about it?
We are trying to, since 2014, bring in ease of doing business in India, and in every sector where there was only 26% allowed for FTA, we raised it to 49, and then where it is possible, we've raised it to 74, and so on. So there's been a consistent, continuing effort to relax our policy towards FTA. First, it went sector by sector. Then there was this approach taken so that most of which can go through the automatic route. So in that process, further simplification, if necessary, we are willing to do, is what is conveyed.
Also, ma'am, you have like increased the Mudra loan limit to 20 lakhs, like that cap. So can we expect the increase in Shishu, Tarun, like their types increase? So how much it will be? Can you give detail on that?
We've said this only today. See how this works.
Okay, thank you.
I request you to please one question each person. 123, please. Here.
Shrimi Chaudhary here from Business Standard. I just wanted to understand that budget proposes withdrawal of equalization levy. So if you could just give some explanation of what led to that, what is the intention behind that, keeping in mind the pact between India and US which has ended on June 30th.
No, as the Pillar 1, Pillar 2 negotiations have been going on since 22. And since then, one of the things which was becoming more than obvious was, if at all we are going through this Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, which we intend to, the negotiations and the OECD, backed by the US administration, have all been pushing for this. We wanted a fair solution, so negotiations have been going on. But the point of contention from then has always been, should we collect an equalization levy then, if at all we are getting into this global understanding through the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2? In any case, for India, equalization levy also meant for those who are living abroad that you were holding it, but eventually they're going to only adjust it somewhere. So in the interest of moving towards Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 solution, which the negotiations are still going on one aspect of it, on the other, in all probability, we are close to a conclusion. It was necessary for us, through the Parliament, to take steps to ensure that we are entering into that scheme of things without this equalization levy hanging on us, because this was important for us, but if it is a global system, this cannot continue. And therefore, with a positive approach towards the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, we've moved forward to inform the Parliament that we would like to close this.
270.
I may clarify that it is only the 2% levy which has been withdrawn. The 6% levy which was earlier imposed, that continues.
What will happen to the tax collected so far from all these companies under this 2% equalization?
That has already been collected. We'll see. I mean, it is only this withdrawal is only prospective.
Ruchika from Business Standard this side. Ma'am, the miscellaneous capital receipts have seen an increase in this budget to almost 50,000 crore. Is there the miscellaneous capital receipts?
Okay.
Can you share the government's game plan as to how will we achieve this increase?
The miscellaneous capital receipts are budgeted as 50,000 crore, which was like 23-24 also, it was 51,000 crore, the interim budget. Now it's 50,000 crore, 24-25. And this combines with all kinds of receipts which are otherwise disinvestment receipts, asset monetization receipts and other kinds, which will be clubbed with that. So this budgeted figure is 50,000 crore.
One six.
Ma'am, very good evening. Sapna Das here from CNBC. Ma'am, two questions. On the incentive like employment scheme that you have announced, 2 lakh odd crore is your overall fiscal envelope over the duration of the scheme. Could you give us a sense as to, we are already almost halfway through the current financial year by the time you pass the budget. So practically around 7 months will remain for the financial year, but any kind of an allocation that you have done for this scheme for this year, ma'am? One is that. And ma'am, just a corollary also on the miscellaneous receipts question, though not very much part of this budget, but nevertheless, ma'am, government had a very, kind of a bold privatization program. Do we understand that this is now being calibrated? That's it, ma'am. Thank you.
First question. As you rightly observed, there are only this is not a full financial year. The schemes have just been announced. They will now go through a process of quick design, appraisal and approval. However, budget provisions have been made for these schemes, partly in the Ministry of Labour and Employment and partly in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the internship scheme. So from memory, I can be corrected. I think it's 2,000 crores has been provided for the internships in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and about 5,000 crores has been provided in the current year in the Ministry of Labour and Employment. But we stand committed to funding them fully to the extent that may actually be required. These are just very rough estimates based on how much time it might take to kick off. On the miscellaneous capital receipts?
Well, I think in the interim budget, FM had announced, we are going for a holistic strategy for management of equity in PSUs. And I think which includes, value creation and also, using the performance, the capex, the dividends and consistent dividend policy and the capital management all together, and also the calibrated disinvestment strategy, which also includes listing and market dilution, but all together in a holistic way so that value maximization is there. I think the same strategy is going to continue.
122.
Hi, Rishabh with NDTV Profit here. I have two questions. One on the space fund that was announced, the 1,000 crore fund. What will be the composition of this? Which will be the nodal agency and what sort of startups will the government invest in? And on the NPS, you also mentioned that the NPS committee has made progress in the speech. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
So we have seen that there's a lot of interest of the private sector on participating in the space program. Hitherto, the participation used to be on being a supplier to the space program, but now development of the satellite, mounting experiments there, they're getting into that space. And if you recall, even FDI was opened up in that sector. This is an attempt that Indian entrepreneurs, Indian startup who want to risk capital to get into that area, that should be facilitated. We believe that the amount is 1,000 crore, but that can have a very large multiplier effect. And that's what the scheme announces.
On your question on I think your second question was on the government NPS, right? So, as you know, there is a committee which is looking into it. The committee has done a lot of detailed calculations of the fiscal implications of different ways of addressing what are the expressed sort of priorities of the employees. We have been in dialogue with state governments. We have had discussions with each and every state government. We have met the staff side of the government has a staff consultative machinery, a formal machinery. We've had 4 meetings of that machinery to understand what are the staff's priorities. And our attempt is to design something that is fiscally prudent, but also meets what are the core priorities of the staff in terms of having a secured retirement income which provides for their needs. So this is a balancing act, because obviously there are costs. The more you give, more expensive it is. And so we are at an advanced stage of working out various options, and we are also discussing these options with the staff side. Just to correct the budget estimate that I gave earlier, 10,000 crores has been provided in Ministry of Labour and Employment for the new employment schemes, and 2,000 in Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Yeah.
125.
Good afternoon, I'm Nikunj from Reuters. A follow-up on that FDI facilitation, you said that government will take steps to facilitate FDI. The Eco Survey also yesterday said that the government should import capital from China so that there's a right balance between investments and trade. So will the government also take steps to quickly facilitate investments from China that have been pending for long? And secondly, you've come up with an NPS for minors. So will that also have some sort of tax benefits to nudge people to enroll for NPS so that a pension coverage increases? Thanks.
See, Economic Survey gave its view on the investments from China. As things stand today, investments do go through the Press Note 3 process when it comes from China or from any of our neighboring countries. So that process is still on. Economic Survey has indicated that it might be time for us to open up and allow for. So that's a Economic Survey. I'm glad that the Secretary is seated here. It's normally an arm's distance. But that doesn't mean that I'm disowning the suggestion. You want to say?
10. In general, as you can see, our aim is tax code simplification and not complication. So beyond that, I don't have anything specific on that. But the general direction of travel is obvious. We are not creating more and more tax deductions for individual tax instruments.
Respected Madam, मेरा नाम नरेश वत्स है और मैं स्वतंत्र पत्रकारिता करता हूं। आज जो आपने किसानों के लिए और ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के आधारभूत संरचना के लिए काम किया है, उस पे दो तरह की राय आ रही है। एक राय तो ये कहती है कि गालिब ने ये कहकर तोड़ दी तस्बीह, क्यों गिनकर नाम लूं जो बिन मांगे बेशुमार देता है। एक वर्ग तो इस तरह से तारीफ बजट की कर रहा है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ प्रतिपक्ष के नेता राहुल गांधी ने कहा है कि आंध्र प्रदेश और बिहार पर जो दरियादिली दिखाई है, कहीं न कहीं ये लगता है कि ये कुर्सी बचाने का बजट है। अखिलेश यादव जी भी ये कह रहे हैं, आप कैसे देखती हैं?
जिन इंडी अलायंस का मेंबर्स साथ होकर के भी 230 पार नहीं किया और जहां बीजेपी अकेला 240 तक पहुंचे और प्री इलेक्शन अलायंस के साथ आज सरकार तीसरी बार बनाए, प्रधानमंत्री जी का तीसरी बार स्वतंत्र भारत के चरित्र में पिछले 60 साल में जो नहीं हुआ अभी हुआ है। कुर्सी बचाने की बात करने वाले पार्टियों थोड़ा सोच ले। उनके अलायंस 230 कुल मिलाकर कितने पार्टियां थे? 25, 26 पता नहीं, मैं गिनी नहीं, बट इंडी 37 पार्टीज कुल मिलाकर के 230 पार नहीं किया और वो बोल रहे हैं कुर्सी बचाने के लिए। जब प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी तीसरी बार प्रधानमंत्री बने और देश के लिए इतना घोषणा भी कर रहे हैं जिससे भारत देश का हर राज्य सामने आए, डेवलप हुए, और 1.50 लाख करोड़ इस बार बजट में स्टेट्स के लिए हम दे रहे हैं बिना इंटरेस्ट 50 साल के लिए फ्री। फिनांस कमीशन तो हमारे उनके सजेशन में इसका जिक्र तक नहीं किए, हम ही कर रहे हैं स्टेट्स के साथ काम करने के लिए। हर स्टेट का उनके अपने अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स जो प्रोसेस के चलते हुए आता है उन सबको हम मानते हैं और जरूर उनको जो फाइनेंस करना है वो हम करेंगे, मगर जिक्र इसलिए नहीं किया बजट में कुर्सी बचाने। जब उनका टोटल को एक और बार चुनावी सीट जो जीते हैं वो 101 और बार उसको गिनकर देख लें, 37 पार्टीज कुल मिलाकर के कुर्सी बचाने वाले बात बोलने का अर्हत अधिकार उनके पास नहीं होता है।
121.
Ma'am, Meghna Mittal from Money Control. In the union budget, you have announced financial support to MSMEs for shift to clean energy and also a new mechanism for credit so that they do not go into stress and they do not turn into NPAs. Any details on that?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I'm really glad because this budget, and I don't want to say it because I've presented it, I'm so grateful that the Prime Minister looks at every sector and says, what are we doing for them? What are we doing for? This has been his approach always. But this time around, we've spent a lot of time understanding also from those stakeholders who had consultation with us pre-budget. And MSME's request it has been for now several years that when they reach the SMA 1 stage itself, they get to be very, very tensed because banks stop their finances, meaning banks no longer lend to them. They are stressed as it is. And if they are stressed as it is, and if there is this threat that the bank will not further give them working capital, sooner, by the 90th day, they become NPAs. In order to give them a good workable solution, and I'm indeed grateful to this entire team of secretaries here, they spent a lot of time also talking with RBI to see how best we can address this issue. And RBI has also a very well established framework which we are quite respectful of, where banks are clearly given a bit of a margin to handle MSMEs at the SMA stage 1 itself, without pushing them to become SMA 2 stage, and then at the 90th day announce them as non-performing assets. So what actually has happened now, having discussed with the RBI, is that we'll provide them with a fund which will help them to have some kind of government guaranteed liquidity, or the banks can then, on the basis of the guarantee being given, on the back of the guarantees which are being provided by the government, lend them working capital and keep them moving. And if they restore themselves, they're going to be better off. So on this principle, I'll certainly ask you or Vivek to speak and explain it to you all.
As FM has already explained about the credit guarantee scheme, this will certainly facilitate the term loans without collateral or third-party guarantees. Then new assessment model for MSME credits, which will be based on their digital footprints and the kind of payments they are making, such as their PF contributions, salary payment, and other transactional data.